This is Shantal Der Boghosian
and Ulises Guzman.
And we're here to share our weekly podcast with all of you. Join us every week. See you there. Hi, everyone. This is Shantal.
And Ulises Guzman.
And we're here today with our first guest speaker.
Yay!
Her name is Nathaly, and she happens to be my oldest sister.
Nathaly, she's not just only your big sister. She does sound baths, she's a healer, and she's a spiritual individual.
Now, for those of you who follow every single one of our episodes, you may recall that in episode 3, while discussing Kobe Bryant's tragedy, we did delve into the spirituality, and we spoke about Brian Weiss. And Ulises and I, we kind of went at it a little bit because he's not as spiritual as I am. And I promised that I would take him to a past life regression. And so here we are with my sister. So without further ado, I'll let her introduce herself and speak a little bit about what she does and why she's here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nathaly. My voice is very similar to Shantal's, so please keep up. I have been a follower of Brian Weiss, who found the past life regression, discovered it years back, decades back in the early 80s, and been an avid reader of his books since I was in high school, which was now over 20 years ago.
Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy, yes. And recently, a few years ago, I came back in touch with his work and realized that he facilitates trainings at the Omega Institute in New York, which is a beautiful property where they have mindful and spiritual classes, and he happens to teach a 5-day course there, which I took and am now trained to facilitate past life regressions. I've always been interested in that kind of work. I've had a few past life regressions myself. And I think the most valuable thing that I came to the realization is that past life regression is just another opportunity for you to be able to tap into the information in your subconscious. So the work itself is more getting into a meditative state where you can let down your guard, which many people know is your ego that's always out there protecting you and blocking certain information that from your subconscious that's trying to come through. So by kind of quieting that part of your mind, you're able to access your subconscious, and it's your subconscious mind that has a lot of the information that can help you heal from trauma that is related to either this life or a previous life. But it's digging in to see, and whether it's real or not, that's up to the person experiencing it to decipher. But there's a lot of potential in having that experience and finding that healing. And it's just finding that healing in itself is so powerful that, it might not even be a past life. It might just be a visual or a connection to a spiritual guide or even a loved one that's passed that is able to visit you in that meditative state when you're under that meditative state.
I'm guilty of that. I have my ego blocking me, saying, this is all in your head. It's a placebo effect. It's just your imagination, and your imagination can run, it'll run like crazy. So I do have that problem. Do you encounter people that are kind of closed-minded like myself, and are they believers afterwards when you take them to a past life regression?
I think that there's always going to be a skeptical part of everyone to the experience itself. We are so convinced of our reality right now and what that is that we don't allow for our imagination to run wild or to work itself into our real life. But in a way, we almost need to allow that because we've become too strict with our lives, and there's a lot less playfulness, which comes from a lot of that imagination. And who's to say that's not real? Is there any proof that it's not real? It's really up to the person. And if it makes you feel better, why not believe it?
Well, that sounds just like me in episode 3. I think I said that exact sentence to you. So let's take one step back, because I think a lot of the listeners have no idea what past lives are and what we refer to it. And I think it's something that could be relative to the person, right? A past life could also be your childhood when you're doing the regression. So could you explain a little bit more from a standpoint where you have no idea what you're talking about?
Yeah, and that's really great that you bring that up, because a past life, well, let's just bring back to the Brian Weiss's experience. He was a psychologist that used hypnosis to help his clients find the root cause of trauma in their lives. And so when he was with his first patient, Catherine, and told her to go back to a point in her life where the traumatic experience had started, she started describing an ancient lifetime in vivid detail. So she was able to explain her surroundings and her clothing and, a life that no longer exists. And that really threw him off because he had never encountered that again before. But it started happening very frequently. And what impacted him was that she was actually starting to heal from the symptoms that she had gone to see him for. So he created this method to be able to access what he called past lives. And so the idea is, and there's many religions that actually refer back to a soul, an eternal soul coming to a physical body in many different stages or ages, or in order to accomplish a lesson in that lifetime. So once you accomplish that lesson, your lifetime ends, and then your soul moves on to live another life. And we can go in on another podcast about whether time is linear or not, but that is a podcast for another day.
I love time and time travel.
That's
it's my
deep.
favorite subject, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Time traveling confuses me. It
Yeah.
really does.
I tried explaining it to him when we watched the Avengers. Oh, can't spoil it for you guys who haven't watched the final Endgame.
Thanos dies.
Womp womp.
But you're totally right, though. I believe since we all work in LA, we take ourselves too seriously, especially at work. Mondays through Fridays and perhaps Saturdays, we're always just serious and, no imagination whatsoever. We just follow instructions and don't think outside the box. And that just becomes a habit of ours. So when it comes to downtime and having an imagination, during the past life, yeah, I guess the old habit it's hard to break. So I totally agree with you. We have to be playful and open up so we could have that kind of experience. I think that's something that I should be learning because I forgot a long time ago because, work doesn't allow you to do that.
You forgot what a long time ago?
Well, just to keep an open mind and to open up to, past life regressions or spiritual healing, things of that nature. When we were all kids, we would be imaginative up the wazoo. It was limitless. But being adults and taking ourselves seriously, we forget how to do. Well, I forget how to do that. So I think it's time for me to open up the door and let everyone in.
And you bring a really good point. Have you, listeners, noticed that all the creepy stories come from kids who are younger than age 4? I mean, my nieces have creeped me out several times. I'll never forget. One time, my niece was sleeping over and she was 3. And she's like, "Who's that?" I was like, "Who's what?" Because I lived by myself. She's like, "The person sitting on your bed." And I was like, "There's no person sitting on my bed. There's no person sitting on my bed." And yeah, after that, I couldn't sleep. But they do say that children are more innocent and they're still connected to that fresh part of the soul that remembers previous lives. So they're more prone to saying weird things that sound creepy or they're out of place. Like, I do also remember a story of one of my cousins. He was age 2 or 3, I think. And he told my aunt, his mom, "You're not my mom. I had another mom and I died when I was 5. And he was 2 or 3. She's like, "What the hell is happening right now?" And so she was creeped out until he turned 5 and he looked past that age. But
I see dead people.
great movie.
Yes.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of documentation of kids that actually recall past lives with detail, and it's been proven that they're actual lives. So there's definitely a story there. And beyond that, I think that, Ulises, you kind of touched on something about like your day-to-day, basically the grind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people
Agreed.
have actually, there's most heart attacks happen on Monday morning at 9 a.m. because
Really?
yes, because people, it's just like the work week. Nobody looks forward to the work week. There's a reason why Friday exists, right? Because everybody's looking forward to the weekend. But what is it that you're running away from? And that's where all of this, the catalyst for me looking for alternative ways to help people find a way to make their lives the ones that they want to live and not have to run away from it. Not having to book your next ticket out of town just to actually feel like you're enjoying your life. But how do you bring that in to your everyday? And I think that it's so amazing when you experience who your soul truly is by being in that meditative state, that it's not drug induced, but that you are able to put yourself in a state where you can see that you're truly multidimensional, that you're so much more than your life right now, that your vision about your soul and who you are is so much more expansive than what you're living right now, and that there's so much potential out there for you to be able to do anything that your imagination can come up with that is within the constraints of a human body, of course.
Now, I think it would be great to share your journey with the listeners, because you haven't always been the spiritual leader. You come from what I call a traditional upbringing, where you follow the rules of society, and you went to high school, you went to college, you got a degree, you got a job, and you didn't have any of this in mind, right? We just did it on the side because we were raised spiritual, but we weren't really focusing on it. And at some point in your life, your focus shifted because of the activities you were partaking in, right? I remember a couple of times you would take me to meditations, which everyone who knows me knows I'm a spaz and I just don't know how to meditate. So I always tell my sister I'm her best case. If she could break me and crack me and make me meditate, she could solve any case in the world.
Are you talking about yoga or meditation?
Meditation. I cannot sit still, but yoga too. I can't sit still. I just listen to me. I'm a spaz. But anyway, I think you yourself have a cool story, and people who know you always ask, how did Nathaly get to this point? And if you don't mind sharing, I think it would be cool for people to listen in.
So it's a little bit not linear. I remember when I was very young, about 8, talking to mom about time and the existence of time. And how do we know that even back then, when I was that young, I believed in past lives. And I remember a vivid memory of being in the backyard asking her, how do we know that if in our next life, we're going to live in the future? How do we know that we're not going to live in a past life, like go back to the past and relive? And now, actually, I've heard a lot of people bring up that a soul can split. And so this is also probably food for another podcast, into multiple lives at this. They can coexist in different ages, as in not like how old you are, but like different times, time frames. But I've always had that draw to spirituality and healing, and from a very young age, but we're not focusing on the healing part just yet. I think that the catalyst for all of this was when even though I was really interested in past lives, when I had my first regression. And I didn't see a specific past life, but I got a feeling of being part of the cosmos, and as dreamy and some people might call it hippie, as that might sound, feeling that connection to source and that unconditional love, that wholeness, was a sensation that stayed with me for so many days. Even I can recall it now, a couple of years later. It was such an whole feeling of belonging, of it's beyond love. It's beyond anything that you can ever feel of it in this life. And for me, that was what basically told me that I needed to be able to provide this experience to everybody else, because it truly shows that we are so much bigger than who we are now and part of a bigger thing in conjunction together collectively. Because if you think about it, we're all here living this experience and we all set our realities. And what is our reality? You know, but if you can bring that reality up, especially at a time like this, when the media is covering so much of the hardships and so much of the devastation and so much of the lack, but bringing in something that can uplift us so that we can truly feel connected to the person next to us. And in that connection, raise our consciousness and raise our experience to make it the best experience that we can have in this lifetime. Why not? You know, you can still be skeptical, but if you're feeling inside that you're walking with a, you know, like with, what is it that they say, that skipping your step, or
the skip and the hop.
I don't know. You and I are horrible at these analogies.
so bad at it. American
Anyway.
idioms, and my boss
my
uses that a
goodness.
lot, and I go, I don't know what that means.
It's so horrible. Anyway,
boomer.
yes. But if you can experience anything that can just uplift you in the long term, why not? You know, you're not doing any harsh drugs. You're not doing anything that's going to be detrimental to your health. It's an experience, and it's not induced by anything other than your mind. How powerful is that your body can get you to that state of mind? But you can't truly believe in it until you experience it. So
perhaps that's why America is the biggest consumer of drugs. We're always in a hustle, always grinding. And you're right, we do lose ourselves and forget, you know, the family values, the solidarity, the wholesomeness. We forget that. So what is it that we fill that void? Drugs. You know, here in California, marijuana is legal and it's in high demand because people want to get out of reality. They have to take a substance, or a doctor will write a prescription. Oh, you're feeling depressed? Here's some pills. Oh, you're feeling this? Take some pills. Being addicted to opioids. It's always a substance that could facilitate you according to them. But if this is an alternative to do it in a natural way that heals you from the inside out, your body, you know, your mind, your body and soul, I'm all for it, you know.
Yeah, but where's the skeptic, Ulises, the one that has the questions? I want you to ask the questions today.
Well, I was skeptical, but I think she answered all my questions, to be honest. I mean, she laid it down from the foundation up of how she became a believer in past life regressions, and you know, and just knowing how our society is. That's exactly where I'm coming from too. That we always hear about the negativity in the news and, you know, everyone for themselves, you know, the capitalism of selfishness, that we need more and more and more instead of focusing on the wholesomeness that makes us better individuals. You know, she explained it pretty well that, yeah, we all need to have our priorities straight and focus on what's really important, you know?
Yeah, but I specifically remember you saying that you get conned. What was the right word you said? I think I'm going to edit a clip from episode 3 here to get your exact words. And you were saying something along the lines that they make you see what they want you to see. And I kept telling you that when you're doing a regression, you don't even have to talk to the therapist who's regressing you. You could keep it all in your head. So I want those skeptic questions also, the listeners could hear the responses.
I mean, when you're getting bombarded by commercials, $5.99, buy one, get one free. Wait, there's more. Only 3 easy payments of blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I do get skeptical. You know, when somebody comes out of their way and says, hey, are you interested in this? Like, what's your game?
What's your ultimate motive?
Yeah, what's your ultimate motive?
Because we live in that. And actually, like, going back to what you were saying about drugs, there's another drug that people don't realize is a real problem, which is
alcohol?
Screens.
Oh.
People are addicted to
Guilty!
Their screens. Addicted to their screens. There's so much isolation.
Yeah.
You don't need to get out of your house or pick up a phone. And who uses their phone to make a phone call anymore? You know, you're not making... Who calls anyone for their birthday? Now it's just not even a text. With the words, it's an emoticon. I mean, you're just not even having that relationship with people anymore. And we're in such isolation. And the thing that keeps popping up in my mind is the cartoon Wall-E, you know?
He hasn't seen it.
Oh my goodness.
No.
It's just, it's such a reality, and it's just such a stark reality of where our society is heading. So going the complete opposite. And I mean, this isn't just something that I firmly believe in, is the past life regression. It's an entire lifestyle change that we've incorporated, not only limiting screen time, but also having more conversations. Even when I'm by myself, I try to not be on my phone. It's allowing your mind to actually think instead of being infiltrated by information outside of yourself, because you truly can't come into your own being if you don't allow the quiet to settle in so you can hear your own thoughts.
Do you feel peer pressured by your friends and family saying, hey, pick up your phone, or hey, how come you're not following the trends on social media? Do you feel pressured because everyone else is doing it, but you know you're going the opposite?
I mean, I have my sister that says you have to be on, you don't know what TikTok is.
Well, you asked me what's TikTok.
I mean, I have no idea what TikTok is.
And I was like, dude, you have kids. You better stay on top of this.
Right, but you know what? That is a lifestyle choice, because my kids are also going to be raised in a way that not only we were raised, but my parents were raised, you know, building that community.
Right.
Growing up with a community of friends and neighbors and going to the local farmers market. And this goes beyond our theme of the day, but yesterday I was driving and thinking, why am I still going to the farmers market rather than getting my Amazon Fresh box? Because if I cut out the everyday part of my life that is what makes me a human, going to the farmers market, speaking to my vendors, grabbing that fresh peach and smelling it, like that is a moment of bliss that you are cutting out by receiving this box that's being delivered to your door. You're not even seeing the person who delivered it. You're not even appreciating the person that picked it and brought it to you. So again, it's like that isolation. And what do you achieve by taking those shortcuts?
Agreed. No, I totally agree. It stimulates your senses. You know, when you smell that peach, you interact with your vendors, buyers, when you're just talking to strangers, and you guys have a common interest of getting the fresh kale or char. I think that's very important. I'm very old school myself. I still go to the bank, talk to my teller. I still do these, person-to-person ordeals, because if I lose that, then I just become a robot. I just become an invisible man behind a screen. So I totally agree. Sometimes the inconvenience has a reward at the end of the tunnel. So I totally agree. I don't do the Amazon Fresh. Well, Amazon, Prime, yeah, sometimes, because I hate the malls. They're just a bunch of consumers, and I get claustrophobic. They're all over the place, and moms in their strollers blocking my path to walk fast.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a mom with a stroller.
I know, right?
That poor mama has probably not had enough sleep, and it's finally her chance to get out of the house.
Yeah.
Another podcast for another day.
Yeah.
The mom life.
Yeah.
The mom life.
But I totally agree. There is a lot of peer pressure. You have kids, and in their school, I'm sure their kids are in social media, perhaps, or just doing things that they feel they might be left out and they want to participate in. So how do you tell your kids, hey, or do you give them a certain limit on social media or on their phone, just so they don't feel too isolated from all the kids? Because I'm sure they have phones, right? Or
yeah, and I think it's more a part of like, how do you bring that consciousness and mindfulness into the family unit, and making sure that you're taking the steps to live that yourself, to embody that yourself and be an example, because your kids are going to follow you by example.
Right.
So if you truly believe in something, it should embody your life in every way possible. And then you apply it to your kids. So just finding your own truth and
Mhm.
whatever that is. You know, you don't need to copy the person next to you. And I think a lot of the social media is you see what people post, and it's,
Mhm.
you know, it could be a falsity to who they truly are, but you're always going to feel like you don't measure up. And
Right.
eliminating that, in a sense, from your reality, because it is not a reality, you're able to find yourself in the, and that's the work. That is the hard work about life. So
Mhm.
whether you want to do a past life regression or just experience what it's like to let go of your ego for a few, you know, like an hour, and see what comes through, there are some powerful messages that can come through. And I actually experienced, and Shantal, I don't think I ever answered what my actual experience was.
No.
So we're
But that's what our podcast is all about.
circling
Segues.
back.
Exactly.
We're circling back. The first experience that I've ever had, I had a very close connection to my grandmother,
Mhm.
who passed away 5 years ago, or no,
7
years
Time
ago.
flies, huh?
It had been 5 years before, at the time that I did the regression. And I had such a vivid experience just seeing her and having her there and holding her and smelling her. I mean, I saw her shirt, I saw her apartment. It was like I was reliving an experience with her.
Wow.
And I couldn't stop crying. I mean, it was just such a real, and I was so grateful for the opportunity to be able to relive that moment, especially because she passed in Uruguay and we were here. We didn't get a chance to be with her again. So that was just amazing in itself. You don't need to do a regression to do that. You can just allow someone to guide you into a place where you can allow your subconscious to decide what it is you need at that moment for you to heal. And it could be a memory. It could be a memory of your childhood that could have been traumatic, or even it could be beautiful. You just need to relive it. An experience with a loved one that has passed, or a spiritual guide that is offering a message that can help you with some problem you might be having at that moment. Or it can even be just an amazing state of ecstasy, not in a bodily ecstasy, but ecstasy in just the feeling of love, of floating, of weightlessness, of the release of the tension of the everyday. And then you just feel so refreshed afterwards. And my experience with that was the catalyst for my whole movement into going into holistic healing, and not just holistic in the sense of natural, but holistic as a whole. My background is in architecture and interior design, and people are often wonder, what is an architect doing?
But now you could say you're an architect of the soul.
Well,
You're a yin and yang.
well, what I like to tell people is that it's not just about, it's about creating your life, and it's about your surroundings and creating an environment that you want to be in that gives you that sense of sanctuary or reprieve from your work or job, but bringing it into the workspace too. It's just your environment should be the best environment that you can envision yourself, to give you that energy to be able to feed you every day, and also working internally and holistic. And so in that sense, it's holistic because it's all around.
Yeah.
From within, nutritionally, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and your environment.
Now, you also practice with children, right? I know that you do meditation for kids, and you've taught your own kids how to breathe and meditate, and you do some sleeping meditation guides with them sometimes at night. So is there anything you want to discuss about that? We could leave it for another time.
I think there's a lot there, and I would love to be able to share that in another instance, because there's a lot of information there that I have a feeling would segue more into the choices that we've made for parenting, and that whole philosophy that we've followed ever since my oldest, Cassis, who's now 8, started school. So
Yeah, I have to say that the reason why I'm stubborn, I have pride. It's since I was a kid, I was taught to, as a, you're to be a man, don't expose all your emotions because you're supposed to be the leader and you're supposed to show composure because the people that look up to you they want to see a strong person, But if you show the emotion and you show maybe temperament, then they look at you as a person that does not have it together. And so being raised, I'm a Mexican, and so it's all about the machismo. You gotta, chin up and just deal with it. Hide your problems or hide your emotions because that just spells out weakness for everyone there to see. And so it's been embedded in me. So it's really hard to get rid of that old habit of letting the ego go or just letting my emotions out or feelings out, because if I want the past life regression to succeed, I have to let it all out. I have to be in my most vulnerable state, and not in a bad way, but in a good way, so I could have that energy coming in.
But it takes a lot of practice to see things in regressions. And I mean, I've done a couple of regressions with you, right? We did some YouTube meditations and you respond really well. I mean, you saw things in both regressions, both times, which shocked me because there are people in Brian Weiss's books where they'll try for months and see nothing and eventually see it. So I love past life regressions. I mean, I just pop up Brian Weiss's CD and then I sit there and I do it. And it's cool to see what your mind is going to show you. And like he says, don't analyze. Don't try to figure out what it is you're seeing. Just experience it. And like Nathaly said earlier, if whatever you're seeing is healing you, who cares if it's real? It's healing you right now. And that's what's important. And so I wanted to share with the listeners ways they could contact you, because you don't do regressions as Nathaly, right? You have another way for them to contact you?
Yes. So my business name is Sanaraa, which means it will heal in Spanish, which I think basically covered all of what it could mean to heal. So I do offer like different modalities. With Felix, my partner, we offer sound healings, and we're going to start introducing sound healings with guided meditation in conjunction. But also I do offer past life regression through guided meditation. So you can contact me at my Instagram handle. It's Sanaraa, SANARAA. You can DM me or message me through there, and Shantal can post also my Instagram handle.
I post. I post a lot.
Yes.
What kind of instruments do you use for the sound bath?
Thanks for asking that. We use it's an ancient technology. It's basically gongs, planetary gongs that are tuned to the frequency of the planets themselves, and Tibetan singing bowls, as well as quartz bowls. And they all have healing capabilities because their frequencies are tuned to a frequency that is the same as that found in nature, that have a healing ability for our own bodies. And I have a feeling that we're hearing another podcast.
Yes, actually.
Being born.
Yes. I want a sound bath podcast.
I would
Felix
love
here.
Yes, Felix to be a part of that.
He has the best podcast voice, which really I can't replicate.
He really does. But going back to something that Ulises that you mentioned that I think is very important to bring up is our upbringing.
Yeah.
Right? We all grow up with this preconceived notion of roles that we need to fit into.
Right.
And realizing that it's not a one fit all formula. We all have a right to come into our own person. And it's the undoing of that is the work of
Agreed.
Finding your truth. And how do we undo these things that have been embedded in our minds and our upbringing and ourselves that we've grown up with and believe to be the truth. And it's one thing to come to the realization that it's not your truth, but it's another to do the work to undo that so you find your truth. And finding that vehicle to get you there, that is the best and most healing way that is not destructive to your body and mind, I think is part of the course of life. And if you can find that, then kudos.
Yeah, I totally agree 100%. It's never too late to do it. So I'm in my
It's never too late.
Yeah, I'm in my 30s, and as long as I have a supporting cast, which I do, I could just spill all the pinto beans out on the table.
There's a joke in there, but this podcast is too serious to lay it out there.
Do you see more of your clients female, or is it just like a split demographic of male and female coming in for the sound baths?
For the sound baths, I think it's equal.
Equal, nice.
Yeah. We're seeing that.
More guys are into it.
Wait. The first time I heard about a sound bath, I thought I was literally going into like a chamber with water.
And they're talking about sound baths now.
I think we should at least explain what a sound bath is, because I was fooled and I went to a sound bath and I was like, I don't see the water. And I felt tricked.
So it is a bathing of sound. It is a bathing of sound. Oh. It is an experience that you take laying down on a comfortable mat. Most people that experience sound baths like to take pillows and blankets to get really comfortable.
And they're sleeping in.
Yeah, you are just receiving. It's an experience to just receive and allow this. It's purely sound, and it's sequential in a way that the sounds that you received are played with different intensities. Mm-hmm. And in different sequences, so that you, as you're being washed by the sound, you're also receiving the vibrations. And as you receive the vibrations, they have a somatic response. And a somatic response is one where you release emotions that might be trapped. And you're also healing your body, because we are 70% water. And water receives vibration.
Wow.
And when the water is basically agitated by the vibration, it's activated, and you're activating your blood cells, you're activating your organs, you're activating your body to respond in a healing way. It also reduces anxiety and stress. It has the ability to reduce depression and insomnia, as well as healing biologically and emotionally.
My mind is blown. Literally.
But you've had an experience in a sound bath. How was that for you?
I have to say, like Shantal said, I thought we were going to take a bath, like a mud bath. There's mud. Sound bath. Okay, yeah, we're going to listen to Guns N' Roses while they're laying in a bathtub, maybe salted.
I don't know what I thought the first time we were going to go. Maybe I did imagine like multi-sensory chambers and everyone was in one, and that's not what it was. It's like going to yoga. You're in a studio and there's people on the floor. And I was like, what are we doing? Yeah. And so, then I learned that it's literally people playing the instruments and there's sound around you. And I'll admit, I'm one of the harder candidates for sound baths because, like I said, I can't sit still. And an hour of that was making me a little bit anxious. And
one would also offer that it might have been bringing up things that you weren't ready to let go of.
It's possible. I mean, I don't think I went back. Have I gone back? I haven't gone back.
But I'll have to say
there's a little bit of resistance there to going back.
Yeah, I don't want the anxiety.
Be it that you, as it may, that it might release some of what causes the anxiety or the nervousness to sit down. I invite you to join us in our next sound bath. And you can always follow Felix at All the Long Breath on Instagram.
No space. All the Long Breath.
Please share his handle as
Will do. Look below if you're on YouTube. or on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes. We're everywhere at this point.
I have to tell you this, and this is a major game changer. Some people might say, well, why not just, put it on YouTube and then I could just like lay on the floor and just hear all the sounds. It's totally different when you go to an actual studio and feel the vibrations. Like
it's crazy.
It tunes you in from head to toe. The actual vibrations, you feel it. So that's the difference between, doing it in person rather than going on YouTube and hearing it for yourself.
Right, because then you're relying on the speaker to be able to transmit something as powerful as these tools that have been instruments that have been tuned specifically for that healing. So there's an amazing video on YouTube that shows live blood tests before and after a gong bath. And in the beginning, the first blood test shows blood cells that are kind of stagnant and still and wrinkled, and they're not really moving. So after 20 minutes, just 20 minutes of a gong, in proximity of a gong, they took the same person's blood test, and now it shows that the red blood cells are activated, they're plump, and they're moving, and all around them are particles because they're detoxifying. So just by being in proximity to this instrument, you have the ability to activate your body in a healing way. It's amazing.
No drugs needed. No medication needed for this.
Big pharma free.
The only thing you need is an open mind, because it's like Reiki, which is another branch that we offer in these discussions.
Please interview Mom.
Yes, actually, our mother is a Reiki practitioner.
Reiki master.
And she is actually the one who taught us spirituality and raised us that way. And it's been really interesting. And plus, she also is my partner in Shakar Bakery. And I just want to interview her because she's all sorts of fun. But Reiki is just like Reiki, every Reiki session I've done them on YouTube when my mom's not around. It always states that all you have to do is have the willingness to accept the energy that's being transmitted to you. And life and spirituality is all about energy. If you're a scientist, you know that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transferred. And that is what spirituality is all about. Energy. It exists everywhere simultaneously and can be transferred, could be reduced, could be enhanced, and it's all about focusing on that aspect of yourself.
And it could be received, and it can be taken away.
Yes, and so I forgot the common term. I actually studied this in physics class, and I was so fascinated. So bodies emit electromagnetism, and just like magnets, you have a positive and a negative. And when you vibe with someone, that's because you have the attractive force with each other, right? You know that if you put a positive and a positive magnet, they repel, and a positive and a negative, they attract. And it's the same with human beings, because we have electromagnetic waves around us. We are looking for the people who add to our magnetism and not deduct. So it is true, when you let shitsters talk about you and ruin your day, which happens to me quite often, I'm allowing that person to get my energy and drain it for me. And go ahead, you have something to say.
You make magnets sound so romantic.
They can be. Science is cool. I'm a huge science nerd.
Wait for a big magnet for your birthday.
Make sure it's attractive.
So how would you how would you be able to recuperate that energy back?
Well, I do spiritual things. I either meditate or I channel into my inner bruja and I ask the universe, what am I supposed to do? And sometimes I do weird shit to you guys. It's not weird to me. It's weird to the listeners. Like, go take a shower and scrub myself with salt, because we know that salt purifies evil. For those
water
who believe.
Itself is cleansing.
Yes. And so I cleanse myself, sometimes literally with a shower, and sometimes figuratively with meditation, or I play my favorite music because that lifts my spirits. And so I find things I love to do to replenish the void that I allowed the other person or the event or whatever it is that drained me, to recuperate that from that event.
And I think that's exactly it. Finding something that uplifts you, whether it's taking half an hour to yourself to read a book, or drinking that cup of tea or coffee, walking in nature is a great way. Nature has all the energy that we need. And if you can walk barefoot in nature, even better. There are actual studies that show that the earth itself, contact with the earth, neutralizes the polarity and the charge that we receive from being surrounded by all these electrical appliances and machines that are around us. So ever since the advent of plastic, we now wear plastic soles on our feet, and we don't have the opportunity to connect back to the earth to recharge and neutralize our
Unless you're
our
Ulises.
charge.
Yeah, I walk barefooted. My inner nomad comes out, and you're right. It does feel good. It really does. Like you're the electromagnetic energy from the earth. Now, it might sound hippie for many of you listeners, but trust me, this is the real deal. The energy from your feet are coming down and just swelling all over your body, and it feels really good. We need that. We're always in concrete, or we're always in shoes, and we're always walking in hard concrete all the time. It's just such a cold environment we live in, such a stone cold environment. Sometimes we have to be out in nature to really get our inner nomad out. That's why we live in LA. A lot of people love to go hiking, not because they love the exercise. It's because they want to get away from the concrete jungle and actually be where their ancestors belonged.
And we have some beautiful hikes. But as an environmental engineer, which Ulises always teases me for reminding people how I'm an engineer, I want to point out how almost everyone on this planet forgets that we are on a planet and that this planet is three-dimensional, and it's not just the concrete that's under our feet. There are layers and layers and layers to this planet, deep to the core. And of course, there's a deep vibration to this planet, and people just ignore it and they forget to connect with where we are, the amazingness that we're able to even exist on this planet. Imagine everything that had to come together at a precise moment to evolve into a space where our lives could be created. And it's just, as an environmental engineer, I have to core into the earth to analyze the contaminations. And I'm always in wonder of how magical it is down there. I always say it's Pandora's box. When I collect samples, I don't know what I'm going to find there. Maybe it's clean, maybe it's not. And sometimes you find gorgeous elements, and the samples come up with different colors if there's copper, and there's just a lot of beauty in the earth. That's my 2 cents on the environment.
Yeah, a lot of gratitude, right, for our environment.
Yeah.
And what do? We turn it into large parking lots and shopping malls. That's what we do to Mother Nature.
Yeah.
As a human, I'm pretty ashamed.
Well, that's another podcast for another time.
Podcast for another day.
You don't want me ranting right now.
No. I think we're almost near an hour, and it's probably a good time to wrap up this session. And I want to thank Nathaly for joining us. I am very happy she did. And as you can see, we sound alike. I hope you've been able to discern who's Shantal and who's Nathaly on this podcast.
Listen for the perkier voice. You'll find Shantal.
And please do follow the links below wherever you are. I will share the handles for both Nathaly and Felix. They both do separate things, but yet they are similar. And we will invite both of them, again, on separate podcasts to further discuss sound baths and meditations. And if you enjoyed having a guest on our podcast, please leave a comment below.
One more thing. I'd love to hear if your listeners would be interested in listening to a live or broadcasted past life regression.
Yes, because I did promise in episode 3 that I would take Ulises to a live regression session to shake out the skepticism.
Bring it on.
So let her know if you all would be interested enough to hear that session.
And I do appreciate all the private text messages, all the private messages on Facebook and Instagram, but I really encourage everyone to leave public comments on either YouTube. I don't think you can leave comments on the other podcasts, but something public so other viewers could see the questions and see my responses and see engagement. Because that's what we rely on, right? Connectivity. We had that whole discussion on today's podcast. and how to restore communication because technology has kind of broken that. So let's use technology to bring it back.
All comments are welcome, so bring it on.
All right, so thank you for this wonderful session.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you all next time.
Auf Wiedersehen.